Welcome back to Keep It Dirty, a podcast where my guests share their life living sustainably and functionally, and the why behind their experiences navigating through our ever-changing environment. I am your host, Leslie Dowling. I'm a corporate speaker sharing how one can jumpstart your path to increased revenue and productivity through restorative health techniques. And today it is a pleasure to welcome my guest, Naina Jain, founder of Marigoldbub, which is an Ayurveda-based skincare for mothers and babies, vegan, leaping bunny, and Asian women owned. So it's such a pleasure to have you today. We met at New York Now show, and I just your energy, just everything about you. I just needed to come over to your booth, speak to you, and hear a little bit about your background and your products. So, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. And thank you for bringing me onto this platform.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, about your passion and drive and motivation behind why you started this business.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a long story. So,
That's okay.
yeah, I grew up in India and my grandfather was an Ayurvedic practitioner. And it's funny, growing up, I never thought of Ayurveda as its like own separate thing. It was like very much just a part of my life. I practiced yoga every day. I ate seasonably every day. Every day we ate what was in season. You paid really good, thought to your digestion. Oh, I ate this and this didn't really settle well. Maybe I should not eat it, or maybe I should not do this. And then I, moved to the United States, and those routines kind of just like fell away from me. And I was like, I'm eating strawberries in December. That's kind of weird, but awesome at the same time. And I didn't realize till I started my own family of some of the things that I had gotten really walked away from, essentially. So my daughter's born mid-pandemic. She has a rash. I take her to a dermatologist, and he's like, oh, we should put her on steroids. And I'm like, that was like the big alarm bell that went on in my brain. And I was like, she is 2 months old. She does not need to be on steroids or any of that. So I was like, okay, thank you for the recommendation. Let me go back and like think about this. And I literally came back home and I was like, this is not the first child that has had this rash. And there's millions of people that have solved this problem without steroids and all the downstream impacts of that. And I really just went back to the roots, right? And so I got on Amazon, and like just leaning back on all the knowledge that I had learned, I was like, okay, I need this oil and this herb, and like I'm making stuff up in my kitchen. My husband's like, what is going on? And I'm just like, just trust me on this. And so I made a massage oil for her, used it on her, and cleared up. And that was like, that just gave me the momentum. And it somehow I had lost faith in it, and that just gave it back to me. So that's kind of how it all started. And then from there, I started experimenting with other things. I, found myself staying up at night, taking all kinds of online courses. I'm like, I need to refresh my knowledge. I need to learn about this. And then my friends are like, oh, I'm having A, B, or C. Can you help me? And so that was like very organically became the genesis of Marigoldbub.
Really interesting. And I was just curious, for people that are passionate about maybe getting into clean beauty, clean health, what were some of the roadblocks that you had? Do you see more and more that, just starting a business like this is more acceptable and it's easier to, get approval of different products, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's such a great question because I feel like so many people market themselves as clean beauty.
Mm.
And when you actually like read the label and you start to look at the things and you're like, this is not really clean. It may be cleaner, but it's not truly clean. I think as a business owner, you really have to educate yourself because surprisingly, there's all kinds of laws around, how you put a barcode on and how you label things, but they're really not good laws or regulation around what gets constituted as clean. So I'm going to sit right next to someone else on a shelf at a retailer, and both of us can call ourselves clean beauty. But if you look at the back panel of us, it could be vastly different. So that was just very interesting that as I was setting up the business, because one of the feedback that people gave me was like, there's so many brands in this clean beauty space. And I was like, yeah. But surprisingly, I couldn't use any of them when I was pregnant or when I was nursing or when I was doing all of these other things or for my kids because they had allergies to this, that, and the other. And I wish there was better regulation around it. So like I found myself saying, oh, I want to be Leaping Bunny certified because they actually take a deep dive into what you're putting in your ingredients. And that was a way to distinguish. But I think there's more space to get better here.
Yeah, and maybe you could explain to everybody that is not aware of. So when you say Leaping Bunny, what are some of the things that you have to be, approved for? Or yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
It's probably one of the, I would say, more stricter certifications that I've gotten. So they work with your manufacturers. They want to make sure that not only is your product not tested on animals and it's, safe to use on human bodies, they trace it back to the supplier. And so they want certifications going all the way back to your supplier where you're getting the raw materials from, and ensure that that supplier also is then not, testing on animals. The product is safe for human consumption, has a safe shelf life, and they institute an audit requirement. So you can't just fake it. And most manufacturers, will think twice about signing a certificate because at any given time, they're going to be audited and they're going to have to pull that all of that documentation and show that it came from an ethical source. It wasn't tested on animal. It didn't harm anybody in the entire supply chain process. And I think that was very interesting for me to learn versus getting like a gluten-free certification where they're just really concerned about, is your actual product gluten-free? And that's great. And I like, that's important for a lot of people that have allergies, but they don't go downstream in the value chain to make sure like how deep are you really doing this? Or are you, kind of doing it more for the marketing aspects of it?
That's interesting. And how long has this been around, this certification? Has it been around for a while? Or is it?
Leaping Bunny has been around for a while. I think it's gained more momentum here.
Yeah.
I would say in the last 10 years. It is expensive because it does require you to, you as they charge based on quantity and what stage of business you are. So you are paying a fee for it. And then it is also a burden on your manufacturer. So one of the interesting things that I learned as I was looking for a manufacturer who, was going to stay true to my formulation and the requirements of Leaping Bunny, a lot of people turned me down because they didn't want to take that onus of like going back to all the way in their value chain and like making sure that they had the right documentation and they could certify it. So it's harder to get, but more widely accepted now. And I think folks are realizing that that really speaks to the consumer and there's value there that people are looking at.
Really interesting, just because I wish they had a Leaping Bunny label for the food we're ingesting, because, when I work with clients or I do some lectures, I always say not only what we're ingesting, but what we're ingesting actually topically on our skin, which can create toxic overload, right? And I guess for, moms that are preparing to like have families or it's crazy the toxic overload that is going on in the fetus from the things that we're inhaling, what we're ingesting, what we're putting on topically is so key and critical. I know in European countries, they have taken off hundreds of foods, packaged foods that are still sitting on our shelves. And what are your thoughts on that? I mean, thank God that we are a voice and we're trying to make changes, but I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I think it always amazes me how different the US regulation is, right? Even if you pull up the same ingredients, you could pull up a Yoplait yogurt in Europe. It looks so wildly different when the ingredients than it does in the US. And it just makes me wonder. And I 100% agree. Like, you have to be so mindful of not just food ingestion, but your environmental ingestion, right? I blog about, Ayurveda and how it can impact all areas of life. And one of the things that I always get questions on, I'm struggling getting pregnant. And I was like, do a life audit. Like, literally look at all the things that are around you environmentally. Look at your detergent, look at the soap you're using, look at, the skin cleanser you're using, and you will find so many toxins in those. And once you start to actually free up your body from working on that overload, it actually works with you. And so that's just, like I said, like, back to, I wish US and Europe regulations were more supportive of that. And I often wish, like, big organizations like Kellogg, McDonald's, like, they had same standards that lived across all countries, and not, hey, you can eat red 5, we don't care if it causes, aggressive behavior in toddlers. But in Europe, where it's officially banned, there's a different, they'll use carrot for coloring or something like that. So
Yeah, it's just so crazy, and I wish I knew what I do now, because my kids are now three boys are 17, 22, 24. But I always knew that some of these products and these dyes and chemicals and these Mr. Bubble, which has everything under the sun that you cannot even pronounce.
yeah.
But I thought I was being a good mom. Like, okay, that's a great package. We'll dump all this stuff and, watch them bounce off the wall and get hyper. And I'd be like, well, they didn't have candy. What could it be? Not connecting. But sorry that my dog's in the background barking.
No worries.
It's always Murphy's Law. I got 3 dogs. So, but my question is for, new moms or people that are starting families, what are some of the protocols or the things that they can do to just be aware and create a cleaner environment at home too, and with skincare?
Yeah. I think from, like, an eating perspective, I'm a big proponent of sattvic eating, which is a true Ayurvedic principle, which says eat fresh fruit, eat seasonal food, and eat food that's cooked. So it really tries to steer you away from, like, leftovers, like things that have been sitting around in your fridge. They just lose that energy and that nutrition value as they're sitting out there. I think the more you can do that, and I know it requires time, and we are all a rush. Like, who has time for breakfast every morning? And I'm gonna, like, shove a granola bar as I'm rushing out the door or something like that. But I think that, bringing that balance internally to your body. I think from a skincare perspective, you have to look at, your skin changes, your body changes, and how are you actually adapting to that change? Like, you can't use the same cleanser all year long. It's actually not going to benefit you, because your skin's going to be much different in the winter than it is going to be in the summer. And you got to be able to acclimate to that and actually pay attention to what's happening in your skin. And I would say, read labels, like, get educated. Look at the back of that label. And if you don't know the ingredient, you probably shouldn't be putting on top of your skin. And that's it's like, if you read the back of it and you can't understand it, it's probably not what you need to put on your skin. It's like, in our house, we have a 5-ingredient rule. Anything that has more than 5 ingredients, we don't purchase, because if we can't understand it and it's so far
Love
away
that.
from its, like, original intent, that's just not what we need to do. So I think, as someone who's looking to get pregnant, who's, like, is pregnant, is nursing, that type of, visibility and just being aware is really important. So much of skincare also, it comes from mental balance. Like, you get that glow when you are grounded. So I say, meditate 5 minutes, 10 minutes, incorporate, like, breathing exercises, like 10 box breathings a day. Like, it will do so many different benefits are going to come out of it. And it's not necessarily about getting the new chemical mask or going to get a facial. Like, we tend to think of, like, skincare as, like, this thing that we do on the side, but it's really just part of life. And it just needs to be just with the same care that we think about things that are going in our body.
Yeah, I love that. That's so critical to just, you could just sit and be,
Yes,
the art of sometimes just doing nothing and just being okay in your body. And there's so many things that encompass that. And I would love for you to share, I would love, first of all, if you would do some sort of course on like Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and how that changes depending on, like if you're going through hormonal changes or
mhm,
you're where you are in passages of time in your life. And do you incorporate that into your skincare or how maybe you could
absolutely.
share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is like my layman's version of how I explain Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So there's five fundamental elements in Ayurveda. There's space, air, fire, earth, and water. And so those are the five elements, which is different from Chinese medicine. So like a lot of people think, oh, five elements, they should be the same. They're not. So Vata is a combination of space and air. And vata energy is, if you just think about the properties of space and air, it's fast moving, it's like bouncy, it's light, it's fluffy, it's cool. And you'll see that in fruits, in vegetables, cucumber, vata food, yogurt, vata food, like light, airy, bouncy, fluffy, cool. Seasons also, you'll see that as well. Spring is also often associated with vata. You're coming out of that deep and like getting back to that light, fluffy, earthy feel. Then pitta is a combination of fire and water. And it is a slightly more denser than vata, but not as dense on the other end. And think about the properties of fire and water, very transformative, fast burning, metabolizing. So people that get hungry a lot have like a lot of pitta energy in their digestion. Like they're just burning food a lot. And then kapha is water and earth. So it's more dense, more sluggish. Winter is a good season for kapha. Pitta is a good season for summer. It's hot, it's oily, it's like fast moving. And so you can think about your body and how you're showing up in the season and how that impacts your skin. So I'll use myself as an example. I am mostly pitta, and summer is pitta season, and like it's like doubling down on my skin. The oiliness is getting out of control. I am getting heat rashes all over the place. That's just like the pitta season on a pitta body just showing up. And the way Ayurveda works is opposites attract. So you do the cooling things. I do all vata things. I eat a lot of cucumbers and mints and water and cold water. And so that's how I think about skincare too. So when you're looking for a cleanser and you're buying something in the summer season, pay attention to that. Like, what does your skin need based on your body in the season you're buying? I don't need an exfoliator. I just need something that's going to uh, help me feel that cool, manage my rash, all of that. So I think that's how I think about that. Yeah, I could talk for hours about this.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating, and I definitely have to have you back on my show because I want to learn more about it. I did a questionnaire and whatnot, but years ago I was Pitta, but
Yeah.
that's kind of me.
Yeah.
Go, move, energy, you know.
It's
Uh,
interesting, like all babies are born kapha, and then they like because they're like born all like nice and chubby and
yeah.
they're slow and they're like sluggish, and then as they grow they like transform into different stages. So there's so many ways that all of these things come into play in our lives.
So, are you going to do any kind of maybe down the road, like a crash course for some of us that really want to start dipping our toes into this whole realm? I'm just so fascinated by different cultures, and, many of my dear friends are globally, and
Yeah.
I'm always just asking them questions about their background or why are they eating certain foods. So, not that I just thought I'm planting the
You're not
seed.
the only one that has asked me that. I
Really?
think I'm going to do it. Um,
Oh,
yes. Because
that's
one
so
of the
cool.
things that I really wanted to do was a course around the first 42 days, like the fourth trimester. And that's a practice that has been in Ayurveda for thousands of years. And it's just, I feel like, catching wave here in the West. And I really wanted to create something around that. But this might be a precursor to that before we get into it. Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep
Oh,
you posted when I
yeah,
bring.
please keep me posted.
Yeah.
And I always ask my guests, who was your role model or your hero or somebody that really sent you on this trajectory or what
Yeah.
you're doing today? Do you have anybody or do you have several?
I would say I have several. Like, I would say I cannot thank my grandfather enough who like instilled these things in me at such a young age. Like, doing yoga when you're 4 or 5 years old and like building that practice that young has done such great things in my life, I would say. I would say my mom, who, also kind of instilled those practices. I was like, why are you eating this? It's just summer. It doesn't make sense for you to be eating like this heavy food. This, like kind of just bringing that awareness into my life. I think all of that environment has just been phenomenal for me to be here and actually be able to talk about it in a way that, I can hopefully improve someone else's life.
That's lovely. And also I always ask my guests, do you have any hidden talents or hobbies that you might want to share with us?
I don't know about hidden talents. I have a very boring life. So I am like a CPA by trade. So I'm a very left brain person. So this is very much my creative outlet. I love to travel and I love to read. So I am often reading 2, 3 books at the same time. I love to learn. That's my
Yeah,
hobby.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
And I would also love to know, for all our guests and viewers, um, a lot of people that are starting their own businesses or maybe getting into some sort of clean, either just exercise, starting yoga studios. And how long did it take you from, really launching this
Yeah.
and getting your product ready, labels, all of that?
Um, I would say it didn't intend to launch products. So I started with just blogging and educating because that was my true intent, was just to make people aware. The products came a little bit later, and I think the cycle depends on, how detailed oriented you're going to get. So like this is where all my left brain kicks in. It took me about 6 months because it was a lot about finding the right manufacturer, trusting them, being able to trace back and make sure I wasn't going to lose the integrity of those products and the formulations that I had. I think that finding the labels and the bottles, that's like the easy part, but finding a partner that you can truly trust and rely on was much harder than I thought it would be. And I remember like talking to a couple of people, going down the journey, and then I saw how they worked, and I was like, okay, we're gonna have to end this because this is not going to fit for won't be a fit. So I would say you could do it in as fast as 3 months, but it could take you as long as a year. You just gotta find, what your non-negotiables are and what those values are that you really want to stick to. And for me, it took about 6 months.
Wow. I would think that that's pretty quick, but you already were focused.
Yeah.
You knew what you wanted to, launch, I guess, produce. You had all the ingredients already ready to roll, I would
Yeah, I
assume.
already had the formulations, right? It also depends on like where you want to start in the process. If you're looking for somebody to develop a formula for you and do all of that, you add, 3 to 4 months to that timeline because you're going to develop, test, tweak, and do all of that. I had already done all of that when I said, okay, this is now a thing. I had the formula. It was a matter of replicating them and not losing their integrity. And that's why I think it probably was shorter than it would have been had I just started at the very beginning.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's just so interesting to talk to everybody's journey, people that are in business, that are solopreneurs, and just how they grew and evolved. So, I would love also for you to just share with our viewers and listeners how they could contact you and if there's any special packages or anything you're doing, say for the summer.
Yeah, so we'll be doing a Mother's Day sale. So check out our website, marigoldbub.com. We'll have their Instagram. I manage our Instagram. Like I'll respond to you if you DM me on Instagram. So at marigoldbub. Also email Naina at Marigold or info at Marigold. I have some partners. I'm very thankful. I have some great partners who help me do like the creative on the Instagram and everything like that. But I like to engage with anybody that reaches out to me, whether it's just doing like, hey, help me write a newsletter about Ayurveda, or I just want to learn more. Reach out. I'd love to chat.
Well, it was great to connect and walk down where you were at the New York Now trade show
Yeah.
and to have you on. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on Keep It Dirty. So
Thank you
thank you.
so much. It was phenomenal meeting you, and I'm so glad I got an opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
And I am congratulations on being the top 10 globally, from what I understand, in health and wellness. That's a huge
Thank you.
accomplishment. Yeah.
It's a labor of love, as we all know, but I
Yes.
love just connecting and forming such a beautiful group of people that are like-minded, that wants to save Mother Earth, that wants to get back. And we're all coming a full circle, coming back to practices that have been around for thousands of years. So I just love what you're doing. And I just am going to keep tracking you to see how you're growing, waiting for that package of maybe doing a seminar on the Vata, Pitta, Kapha,
Yeah.
which I will be the first one to sign up for.
All right.
Yeah, but again, I wanted to thank all my viewers. So does my Shih Tzu Daisy for listening. And please subscribe, show some love. If everybody could rate me. And again, remember to get out there, ground with Mother Earth, and also keep it dirty.
Thank